This is 1 milliliter of water, and this is 1 million milliliters of water. For every person who succeeds, this many won't. Achieving success is like capturing lightning from a pot. It's basically impossible. But here's the thing, people do it every single day. So how come success is so impossible, yet so common? This question led me down a rabbit hole that is kind of insane. And it led me to question whether success is as impossible as they say after all. Today, I won't just be disproving the 1 in a million theory, but I will also lay out the 3 fundamental principles that will allow us to see what actually is the probability of success. It's the 1970s. This professor publishes a paper that will go on to snowball into one of the biggest misconceptions of the last half a century. The paper is about a new unit of measurement. It's called the micromort, and it's defined as a unit of risk representing a 1 in a million chance of death. For example, traveling via car for 250 miles has 1 micromort. If you travel via car for more than 250 miles, you have a 1 in a million chance of dying. At the same time, the EPA adopted a similar measurement to decide a threshold for minimal risk from environmental causes. For example, if they found contaminated water, they would decide if the contamination level has more than a 1 in a million chance of someone getting cancer. At the turn of the century, the saying 1 in a million lost its scientific background and transitioned towards becoming a cliché that was no longer about cancer or death, but about an oversimplification of near impossible odds. This graph clearly highlights how in the last 20 years the phrase has not only been growing in popularity, but has also taken on the persona of extraordinary success and wealth. The 1 in a million saying clearly has no evidence to back it up. So what are the actual odds of you becoming successful? For every 1 successful YouTube channel, this many will fail. For every person who becomes a pro athlete, this many won't. And out of all of these aspiring billionaires, only 1 will succeed. The problem now becomes, how do you determine overall success? You're thousands of times more likely to become a successful YouTuber than a billionaire, but both are clearly forms of very aspirational success. More people actually want to become YouTubers than billionaires, so we need a little more context. For that, I want to show you 3 fundamental principles that if ignored will make success nearly impossible, but if followed will make the picture a lot more clear. The more you fail, the more you succeed. The saying 1 in a million is incorrect because the vast majority of that million self-selects out of the competition. The most significant reason why is their misunderstanding between the relationship of success and failure. The flat data we looked at ignores the fact that you're not competing with the person who quit after a week. Every day you keep going, you exponentially increase your chances of success because the competition pool is constantly shrinking. If we accept the idea that there are 1 million ways to fail, but only 1 to succeed, then success requires you to attempt those 1 million failures. Statistically, every time you fail, you're eliminating an unsuccessful path and are statistically closer to a successful one. This is not just a mindset, it's a structural necessity that is required to succeed. The successful 1% operate under 2 beliefs that the 99% reject. Success and failure are not opposites. The majority of people see failure as proof that they won't succeed. To them, it's a dead end. The successful minority views failure as necessary data, a directional marker. They don't see failure and success as opposites. They are 2 sides of the same continuous process. Every failure is a piece of information that can be crossed off the map, clarifying the path forward. Speed and volume override perfection. The majority suffers from what is called perfection paralysis. They try to perfect every attempt, severely limiting the data they collect. This is a fatal flaw that I can tell you I'm guilty of myself. Let's look at an example of why perfection paralysis is so dangerous, and why the ones that move past it are dozens of times more likely to succeed. If I give you a simple challenge where you receive $1 for every 3 you successfully make, a perfectionist might spend 15 seconds per shot at a 50% accuracy. This will yield them $120 in 1 hour. A high volume operator might spend 6 seconds per shot at a 30% accuracy. In 1 hour, this yields $180. The high volume operator earns 50% more simply by prioritizing volume over perfection. Crucially, the volume operator also gains 2.5 times the data and receives exponential skill improvement in the long term. Success isn't found in the quality of a single attempt, it's found in the quantity of the iteration cycle. Any high volume operator is instantly no longer in competition with the perfectionists, increasing their odds drastically. Chase tiny improvements. The second structural flaw that causes the majority to self-eliminate is their obsession with the secret. People tend to seek one big massive leap that will launch them into the 1 in a million success category. This mindset is statistically crippling. The successful 1% understands that there is no secret, there's only process. Believing in some revolutionary shortcut paralyzes 99.999% of competitors, causing them to spend months searching for a non-existent advantage rather than executing. They fail to understand the concept of instrumental compounding. If you asked Steph Curry about his secret to his shooting, he wouldn't describe some revolutionary technique. He would describe the discipline of repetition, where every shot taken is an attempt to get 1% better than the last. The perceived secret of his success is merely the visible outcome of invisible daily compounding. The difference between the majority and the successful minority is explained by basic math. The person searching for some 300% shortcut gives up when their first few attempts only yield a 3% improvement. The person mastering the instrumental principle understands that success is not a sudden event, but the cumulative effect of small gains. If a person achieves a 1% improvement every day for a year, the results compound to 37 times more than when they started. This concept was popularized by the book Atomic Habits. By focusing on tiny, sustainable improvements, the successful minority builds an unstoppable momentum that the lottery seekers will never match. They do not need to rely on the impossible odds of a single instantaneous breakthrough. They rely on the certainty of compounding, turning the aspiration from a random event into an inevitable outcome. This again allows the ones that seek tiny improvements to explode far ahead than the ones who don't, further increasing their chance of success. Redefine what success means to you. The first two principles, mastering iteration and compounding tiny gains, solve the problem of process. They guarantee you're in the right competition pool. However, the third principle is what allows you to win by default, escaping the 1 in a million trap entirely. It is a bit like cheating, but will overall allow you to develop a much healthier relationship with success. Success is a convoluted and diverse concept. Its common definition is dictated by fixed, high-status metrics like wealth, influence, or fame. The precise metrics that led to the initial 1 in a million delusion. When society defines success, you are forced to compare yourselves to the extremes. Michael Jordan's global celebrity, or the net worth of a tech billionaire. By accepting this definition, you are knowingly signing up for a competition with millions of people who are aiming for the same single immovable goalpost. The successful minority understands that the only way to beat the 1 in a million odds is to withdraw from the universal competition and start your personal one. Why should your success be measured against Michael Jordan and not your local bakery owner who built a sustainable business for his family? Both achieved wildly different types and magnitudes of success, but only the bakery owner set a goal that they could autonomously achieve. This principle is about seizing the anatomy to define the finish line, reframing the goal. By reframing success away from external comparison, you shift the focus to an act of perseverance through failure towards a goal outside your comfort zone. You should absolutely seek massive life-changing success. You should aim for the impossible. But the journey is validated by cherishing the small wins, the success in your relationship, The success of completing a morning run, or the success of taking a 1% stride towards your eventual goal. When you define success narrowly and personally, for instance, creating a sustainable income that funds my family's travel, you're no longer in competition with the 1 in a million. You're only competing with yourselves and your goals. You move the goalposts to where you are guaranteed to score. Any person who doesn't understand these 3 basic principles is almost guaranteed to fail, possibly validating the 1 in a million saying. But the person who understands these principles increases their odds closer to 1 in 1. If you just keep failing and trying, if every day you seek to get just a little better, and if you take pride and accept the small things as a form of success, the only thing stopping you from getting to the 1% tier is you.